Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for coming today. We're going to call this meeting of the Senate Public Safety Committee to order. We're going to begin as we always do and ask our very own Senator and Chairman Chuck Payne to open us with a word of prayer.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for all your many blessings, and Lord, we thank you for this day. Lord, we just ask you to lead us and guide us in all matters before us. Give us clear eyes and minds of discernment that your will be done, not ours, but your will, Father. For us in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. We have a sign-up sheet that we already have some folks coming up to put their name on. Please make sure you put your full information and whether you're for or against the bill. We're going to hear 3 bills today in committee, and we're going to do Senate Bill 42 first in order to help out my good friend Senator Hodges, who has to then leave here and go to another important committee. Senator Hodges, we're going to put you, if you don't mind, on the podium just so the folks at home can see your smiling face on video. And if I could ask the guys who are going to sign in, if you could just shift a little bit so we don't get in front of the camera, I would greatly appreciate that. And I'm going to ask, because we're tight on time, I think this is a pretty straightforward bill, that if you are here to speak for that, let's not be repetitive if you don't mind. And if you just want to raise your hand, say we're all for it, that's okay too. Don't talk us out of it. All right. That in mind, please, we'll go to Senate Bill 42. Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Today I bring before you a governor and the First Lady's bill, Senate Bill 42, building upon the First Lady and the Grace Commission's mission to bring awareness to and one day eradicate human trafficking. The Kemp administration is pursuing this bill. During the interim, the governor's office was contacted by a constituent questioning the current fine structure within OCGA 16-5-47D1, which imposes penalties when certain businesses fail to post a notice containing the human trafficking hotline information in the bathroom of said business or prominent location of said business. The code section was established in 2013 and only set maximum fines for the offense of not posting notice. Currently, if a business owner is found to be in non-compliance after 30 days from the date of receiving written notification from a law enforcement officer stating that said business is not in compliance with the code section, said owner is guilty of a misdemeanor and may be charged with a fine of up to $500. If a business owner is charged with a second or subsequent offense, said owner is guilty of a high and aggravated misdemeanor and must be charged with a fine of up to $5,000. The governor's office seeks to set minimum amounts for these fines to ensure that businesses and government entities take the law seriously. Human trafficking is a horrific plague on our society, and we must all take necessary steps to end it. This bill updates OCGA 16-5-47D1 to set minimum and maximum fines imposed upon certain businesses for noncompliance to post notice issued by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, outlining the National Human Trafficking Resource Center phone number and the statewide Georgia hotline for human trafficking phone number. This bill would set the first offense of a fine of not less than $500 nor more than $1,000. And the second or subsequent offense, the fine would be not less than $1,000 nor more than $5,000. Simply put, this bill provides a little more teeth to help people take this very serious issue of human trafficking in a more serious manner. Mr. Chairman, I would entertain any questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Senator, for that comprehensive overview. I think that you clearly articulated what Governor Brian Kemp and First Lady Marty Kemp have made their mission over these last many years, is to eradicate human trafficking. And it's very commendable. Great work has come through this committee, also from our very own Vice Chairman, Senator Andrew Robertson. Are there questions from the committee members for the bill's author? I've got a question from Senator Dugan.
No, no, it's more than that. Obviously, I support this. I just got some questions for you. Does this suffice as the posting?
It does. I should have mentioned that it's in your packet. This poster is easily obtainable by any business owner. You can go to the GBI website, download it, print it, and post it in a prominent position or in your bathroom.
So it's kind of like workers must wash their hands before.
Well, it is, but I would think it's a little more serious.
you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean, yeah.
So it's not some kind of huge.
No, no, if you're asking if it's burdensome on a business, I do not believe so.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Question
Senator.
from Senator Robertson.
And to follow up on the leader's question, and mine's certainly not, is it burdensome on the business? Is this big enough? Is my concern. Is it prominent? Is it prominent enough? Because if I go in a lot of businesses, there's all kind of permits and health inspection, code certificates, and things of this nature. So as we move forward, and this, I don't think you have specifications of size in the legislation. We might want to work with our friends over at the GBI to make sure this thing is prominent and draws the attention of
think-
the consumers that use those businesses.
Senator, I think that's an excellent idea. I would only think, though, that most businesses, I don't know if they have the ability to print something any larger than the normal paper, but it certainly would be okay with me.
I know that workers' comp and all this other stuff, they send the posters to the businesses and provide them so that they're easily accessible. But this is good legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
I've got a question from Senator C. What number are you there? 10. All right.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you for bringing this, but I think I've been seeing these quite a bit in a lot of ladies' restrooms. I've never been in the men, but maybe you can help me. But they are posted where folk know where to call, who to call, and let it be known any of that.
That's good to
So
know.
it's not
but-
something new.
Well, thank you. That's
From
good to
my
know.
perspective.
I will tell you that anecdotally, the governor's office has received some information that that these notices are not as prevalent as they need to be. And maybe it's in the men's room. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's consensus that they're in both in many places, as
Okay.
they should be.
Okay.
Okay?
Other questions from the committee members? We have, you can stay there for a second, Senator. We've got our good friend John Melton, the GBI. We've got PAC, Frontline, and Georgia Sheriffs. Is anybody going to offer additional testimony, or is this all, we absolutely need this bill?
Just that it is in the men's room, sir.
Okay.
I don't know that.
Okay. Is there anybody here in the audience that wants to speak against this bill? Choose your words wisely. Okay, with that in mind, I'm going to open it up and recognize our very own Senator Kim Jackson.
And thank you again for bringing this. It'd be my great honor to make a motion that this bill do pass.
I got a motion to pass. Do I have a second? Second. I got a second from Senator C. Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. This passes unanimously. Best wishes in the Rules Committee, Senator. Well done today.
Thank you. Thank you
Well,
for
wait a
your
minute.
help.
Actually, hang on a minute. Was this your first bill in front of committee?
Absolutely.
All right, Senator, we're going to need you for just one moment. I'm sorry.
I know, right?
No, we're going to let you go. This is not the appropriate bill to do that.
Were you going to blood me or something?
No, go right ahead.
All
Thank you
right,
so
thank
much.
you.
Have a good day. Senator, there has been one concern from the committee. We'd have to ask for you to personal follow-up to check all the restrooms in the Capitol and the LOB to assure they're properly there.
And if not, please install.
Use your best judgment. Thank you. All right. Thank you, committee members, and thank you to everyone. I didn't want to cut off your time for speaking today, but I thought that was a lot of unanimity. All right, we're going to move to Senate Bill 41. Senator Williams, are you in the House? Oh, right here next to me. You're on the committee. You can present from there or up at the podium, whatever you prefer.
You have the bill in your packet. What we're trying to do is save some lives through water safety with this bill. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee have some boating stats. I don't think you have it. But There's been fatalities on lakes from people inexperienced, renting boats, buying boats, and just getting out on the lake and going wide open and not knowing the rules of the lake. So that's what this bill is about. Current law requires anyone born on or after January the 1st, 1998 to take a boating safety course approved by the DNR. This bill is targeting people who have never purchased a boat. And I speak from experience. I actually purchased a boat several years ago, and I'd never owned a boat before. They told me a little bit how to operate it, but then I hooked it up to my truck, and I took it and put it in the water, and I'm lucky to be here today because of that. But I just speak from experience, and what this does is when you go to buy a boat or register a boat for the first time, then you're asked the question, have you operated a boat? Do you know how to operate a boat? And there's a short online through DNR that you can take a course on boater safety and to know the rules of the lake. And be glad to answer any questions anyone might have.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. We're going to have a couple of questions. I do want to direct the committee to a letter that is in your folder for the Water Sports Industry Association. They could not be here today, but I'm very thankful for them to pass along their support for this bill. As well as being a boater all of my life, Senator, I want to thank you for bringing this forward. The one thing that you have to teach someone often is brakes are not on boats.
That's right.
And I know in your profession outside of the Senate that you unfortunately had to bring many people to their final resting place that may have been avoided had they had some of that basic training. So I think it's good legislation. I appreciate you bringing it forward. And I've got a question, I believe, for Senator Kim Jackson and then Senator C. after her.
Thank you. Is there a timeline for when you have to get this boating, education? Do you have to do it before you purchase a boat, or you do it afterwards within a certain time frame? Just curious about how, do I get a whole year to get my training, or do I have to do it
No, you
immediately?
could go online and do it. 6 days.
60 days.
Come up here.
I'm here, TJ.
Please, if you don't mind.
I'm
60
told the
days.
answer to your question is 60 days.
60 days. to
And
get
is that
training.
is that a rule from DNR? Is that,
I believe so, and in this bill, it'd be at their discretion.
okay.
Whenever you purchase the boat, you could sign off that you have been a boater.
Right.
And so you know how to operate a boat and you would be exempt. I don't know that there's any checks and balances on this legislation at all. But, there's some figures. And just this past year, I did in my business have to take care of someone who was not familiar with Lake Sinclair, and they were a fatality. We actually had a couple of fatalities on Lake Sinclair last year. And I think actually 3 in that district. But there was 19 total drownings, and just in my district of Lake Sinclair in that area, and there were 3 fatalities on that area.
May I have one follow-up?
Yes.
Thank you. I very much support this bill. I'm grateful that you're bringing it. And I don't want to muddy the waters, if you will, but it does seem like it's very open-ended about when you have to take that training. And I'd be very concerned to make sure that people had that training within a timely manner. So may not want to change the bill at this time, but I do just want to highlight that there needs to be a clear, definitive window of when you have to have that training.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I've got a question from Senator C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I like what you're doing. However, for me, it's more about online. I think practical experience. I mean, just because you can buy one and you can go online and take a course doesn't mean when you get out on all that water, you can do all the nuances that comes along with being a boater. Any thought from your end, it's your bill, and I'm not trying to muddy it at all, But I do look at young people like my son and my grandson. I mean, all of that's exciting, just like driving cars. But at least they have to go and get a license where they got to get with somebody
Yes,
right to
ma'am.
drive, and now we're talking on water. So speak to me about that.
I understand. I have a granddaughter that turned, we just purchased a lake lot and got some Sea-Doos, and my granddaughter was 17. So they all went online, she and her sister, and even the younger ones that are not old enough to operate the boats yet or the Sea-Doos. But they went online and actually took those courses, and my oldest granddaughter, who was able to print the certificate and legally operate. But there again, it's going, you can't legislate intelligence. And even with some of these kids on Lake Sinclair, they're very wild. And we get reports all the time from DNR and the game wardens who are patrolling these waters. But I think what this bill is attempting to do is have a starting point. And, you know, hopefully we can encourage it more into the future. But I think we've got to start somewhere. This is an elephant, and we've got to take a bite at a time. But thank you for your comments and your question.
Thank you, Senator. I know there are other courses that people can sign up for themselves and pay for that have a myriad, depending on the type of vessel, practical in-boat instructions. In fact, when I was a young man, I took a couple of those myself, so appreciate that. It has come to my attention, though, even though you're a tenured member who came over from the other side of the Capitol, this could, in fact, be your first bill in committee. Is that true, Senator?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions right now. Senator Robertson?
Congratulations, Senator, on your first bill. To Senator C's point, and I know we cannot legislate intelligence. We prove that to ourselves every day. But we require somebody to go and take a practical exam to get a learner's permit or a driver's license. Is that not right?
Yes, sir.
And does DNR, don't they offer some courses in boat safety? And if so, are these voluntary courses? Are you aware of it?
They are voluntary. Matter of fact, I have some of the DNR handbooks on boater safety that I can hand out, anyone that would like them, that you can actually, and it tells of different boating safety courses you can take online. That's what I was referring to on my granddaughter. In order for her to operate a Sea-Doo or watercraft, she has to take that course and answer the questions, and they're random. And then if you pass it, then you print your certificate or card, and you have to have that with you as you operate that Sea-Doo. But there again, is for anyone born after the 1995, I think.
98.
98.
Yes, sir. Senator, a couple more questions. Are you a registered boater in Georgia?
No, I'm not.
Do you boat?
I ride with my son.
Okay. So your son's a registered boater?
My son's a registered boater, yes, sir.
Does he have to have an ID to boat?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you call this a boating bill?
I would think so.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Question from Senator Dugan.
Yeah, that's 3. There we go. I'm looking at the dates on here, the requirements, and the if you're a first-time boat buyer, not vote buyer, boat buyer.
Easy for you to say, Senator.
Never mind. No, what I'm asking is, when we take these courses online, if I get tickets or anything right now, they can send me a certification to my phone that I store in my wallet. And I'm looking at the age group that you're talking about on here. I've never actually seen a human in this age group that did not have a phone attached to them. So does it have to be a paper one, or can it be like your insurance in your car and be digital?
I'm sure they could even snap a picture of it like I have done, and then you can show that photograph of that certificate.
Okay, but you're not a boater.
No, sir, I'm not opposed for it being digital, not at all.
Would that be a boater ID?
It would be a boater ID. Okay, thank you.
Question? Other questions? Oh, we've got another question from Senator C.
Still a bit perplexed on online, and basically what my mind's eye is telling me is that it don't even have to be the person. You could get a friend to take it for you, right? Because if it's online, I'm having some trepidation on this because young people love to party, and
Yes,
now
ma'am.
that they can but now that they can get out on the water and party too, that's a real hard pill for me to swallow. I got my grandkids I fight a bear for. But when you are allowing, unlike cars where I've taken them to get driver's license, but you can go online and just put in the right stuff and be permissible, and you don't know who actually submitted it for you, or not that they would, but they could. That's the deal.
You're exactly right.
Yeah.
And, you know, I came along that you didn't have to have any of that. And all we were skiing with was a belt.
Gotcha.
And,
How many of y'all died?
How many of us died?
I'm just saying.
None of us.
No, okay.
We
So no
we
fatality.
survived. I don't know how, but we survived.
Okay.
But growing up on Lake Sinclair, we spent a lot of time on it. But you're right. I don't know, you know, just like I say, this is an elephant that we're attempting to
Understood.
tame. So I'm just trying to take a little bite at a time.
And I'm gonna
Thank you.
try to help you, but I'm having a little bit of problem
Well,
just
something is-
understanding these new generation millennials and Gen X's and all them other names they got.
Yes, ma'am.
Senator, did you have to wait in line while you're trying to go boating?
Did I have to wait in
Wait in
line?
line? No?
No,
Did you ever wear campaign paraphernalia while boating?
I have.
Okay, make sure you're following the rules.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee members? I'm very surprised Senator Goodman does not have a question, by the way. Kind of disappointed, to be honest. Oh, he does now. Okay.
Senator, what does BOAT stand for?
Boat?
B-O-A-T, what does it stand for?
I'm not sure. It was just a vessel. It's a vessel that sits in the water that you throw money in.
I've always heard that it stood for bring out another 1,000.
Being a boat owner, FD, you are absolutely correct. Anyone else? Any other questions for our senator's very first bill? I will ask one final question, but I don't want an answer now. It would be preparation for ultimately bringing this to the floor of the Senate. Are you familiar with moral turpitude, Senator?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll just leave it at that. That's the name of his boat. Okay, great. All right, what is, wait, hang on, we got some people signed up. Why don't you go ahead and take a seat, and we'll come back here,
Okay.
and we'll hear from a few folks here. Senate Bill 41, our first speaker is going to be T.J. Kaplan, who did not fill this out correctly. It says for or against, and he just put SB 41. So
My apologies,
getting back
sir.
to the legislating part that Senator Roberts was talking about.
My apologies for that, sir. Thank you so much for your consideration of this bill today. TJ Kaplan, I represent Calcomai Enterprises, helps the DNR with education of all outdoor pursuits in the state of Georgia. We very much appreciate Senator Williams bringing this bill, and as he pointed out, this is a very small bite of a very large elephant, and we appreciate the attempt to make some progress here, and appreciate your consideration of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you, TJ. We got a question from Senator Robertson.
Yes, sir.
TJ, I'm curious to Senator C's concerns. Does DNR offer courses where if she wanted to take her grandchildren and they could actually have some practical courses?
So there are online and in-person options, and there are also free options as well.
But-
I believe the U.S. Coast Guard also offers some courses.
Okay, I was curious. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next up, is that Ben? Ben, you should have been a doctor based on this handwriting.
Oh, it was TJ's, I'm sorry.
Wait, so are you saying he signed your name for you for the boating bill?
Yes, sir.
All right, please state your name for the record, please. And who
Ben
you are.
Murray, National Marine Manufacturers Association. Appreciate it, Chairman and committee members, for allowing me to be here today. The National Marine Manufacturers Association is the largest marine trade association in the country, representing boat builders, boat manufacturers of accessory parts, trailers, and everything in between. We appreciate Senator Williams bringing this bill forward. We are absolutely in favor of this bill. Like TJ and others have said, it's actually a big elephant taking a small bite out of this bill. And in 2020, we saw record-breaking numbers of people entering our industry, and first-time boat buyers were the majority of those people buying into our industry. So just want to say thank you for your favorable consideration.
Thank you. All right, nobody else has signed up to speak for or against this bill, so I will open it up to the pleasure of the committee. I've got a motion from Senator Mike Dugan to pass. I've got a second from Senator Russ Goodman. Is there any further discussion by the committee members? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no. It passes unanimously. Senator, best wishes in the Rules Committee. And while you are primed and ready to go, we're going to have you come right back up to the front, and we will look at Senate Bill 68. Oh, yes, sir.
Did you know that Senator Goodman's fourth great-great-grandfather actually built the first boat in Georgia?
Was his name Noah?
Yes.
Noah Goodman.
Thought it was Bayliner.
He was a fine vessel.
Great American.
All right. All right. Everybody rein it in now. Order. All right. Senator, Mr. Chairman, thank you again for coming forward. Please tell us all about Senate Bill 68.
Thank you, Senator. As y'all will see, Mr. Chairman, if you'll see in your packet on your desk, some information on dogfighting. And this has become a real big problem, especially with your gangs. They're actually, and I have people here to testify today to that effect. Dogfighting has not a sport. No animal should be, no one should use dogfighting as a spectator sport. They shouldn't do anything like that. What you have before you is Senate Bill 68. It's a very short bill, but it does several very important things. First is that it adds criminal offense of dogfighting to the list of crimes that constitute racketeering activity. Under Georgia's Racketeering and Organized Crime RICO statute, under this bill, the commission of two or more dogfighting offenses or a conspiracy to do so would constitute a pattern of racketeering activity. That would subject the participants to liability under the RICO statute and allow them to be punished as an organized criminal enterprise. As a RICO offense, a pattern of dogfighting would constitute a felony and be punishable by 5 to 20 years in prison and fines. This is stronger than the current penalties for participating in or being a spectator at dogfights. In addition, RICO offenders would be subject to civil forfeiture of any property used or gained as part of the criminal dogfighting enterprise. Finally, acts that constitute racketeering activity, if undertaken in connection with a criminal street gang, also constitutes offenses under the Street Gang Act and subject the offender to additional jail time and fines. As you know, the Senate is currently considering other legislation endorsed by Governor Kemp and Lieutenant Governor Jones to stiffen the penalties under the law. Mr. Chairman, I've provided with you and other members of the committee with some materials about how across the United States, despite being a felony offense in all 50 states, these heinous crimes still persist. And also recently read news about 2 dogfighting busts in the metro Atlanta area. In Paulding County, more than 100 dogs were recovered in the operation. Many of the dogs were malnourished, dehydrated, and they were found outdoors tied to buildings and posts with very heavy chains. There was also a smaller incident in Cherokee County in which 9 dogs were covered and placed in a shelter. Hope this will give our police and prosecutors a stronger tool to target these organized criminals. And I thank you for your consideration, and we'll answer any questions or have others to come up that can answer them.
Thank you, Senator. Let's go through a few questions for you prior to bringing up those who have signed up to speak. I want to thank you. I have worked, as well as Senator Robertson and others, on a lot of the anti-gang legislation, so thank you for bringing this forward in order to bring this pattern away from the individuals who are doing this and try to cast a wider net to bring down those who are causing ill will. So I very much appreciate you bringing this forward. Cherokee County is one of the counties that I am honored to represent, and it is very personal. So thank you for doing that. I believe this is in line with a lot of the good work we're doing right now. Are there questions from the committee members for the bill's author? Got a question from Senator Kim Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm number 9.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Senator, can you talk to me about the problem that you're trying to address here? So, are dog fights happening across the state? People are being arrested and charged with dog fighting, which is already a felony, serving their 1 to 5 years. Are they getting out of prison and dog fighting again? Is this are we trying to stop repeat offenders in dog fighting? Can you just help enlighten me on why our current dog fighting statute isn't working in your mind?
Well, I just think the penalty is not stiff enough, and I think there's other experts that'll be able to testify after me as to that. But from what I understand, there are a number of repeat offenders. You know, they just don't get it. They'll serve a year, get out, and they're right back doing it.
And I believe that our current laws are, if you repeat that felony, there's a harsher penalty already attached to dog fighting. So, I'm just a little unclear about why automatically jumping to 5 to 10 years. But if you'll allow me another question, in dogfighting statute currently, there's a felony punishment for those who are leading the dogfighting, right? So the organizers, the people who are doing it. But then there's also a crime if you are a spectator. So if you and I happen to be bystanders, that's a crime. If we were to pass this bill as you've written, would spectators also be charged with RICO offenses as well?
I think they could be. It would be according to the circumstances and probably to the prosecutor. But there's other people here that can answer those questions probably better than I.
And we're going to have Mr. John Melvin from the GBI come up in a moment. He may be the better authority for that.
Sure.
He's shaking his head, so I'm going to say yes. Other questions from the committee members? All right, Senator, if you want to come back and take a
Thank
seat,
you.
we will invite up no stranger to this committee, good friend from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, Mr. John Melvin.
Thank you, sir. And for the committee, prior to going to the GBI, I was a prosecutor for 25 years, and I instituted and indicted more than 100 racketeering cases, took more than 20 of them to trial. And to answer Senator Jackson's questions, and here's why I'm asking y'all for a favorable consideration. The RICO indictments that I did spanned the spectrum from those people that were just shoplifting, which is not violence, all the way up to those people that are involved in gangs, murders. And when you look at dogfighting, it's one of the most savage, vicious crimes in the state of Georgia. And so I would put those people on the continuum of murder. If we are allowing a RICO prosecution for somebody that passes multiple bad checks, certainly we can take the power of that statute and apply it to those that are engaged in the most savage, vicious crimes in the state of Georgia. And the way the RICO statute works is it incorporates 42 different state laws as well as federal laws and says that if you commit 2 of them as part of a pattern, which is in furtherance of 1 or more schemes, then you can have RICO liability. We've had the statute on the books since 1982. What we're finding out, and the premier animal fighting prosecutor in this state is Jessica Rock, who's here. And what she can tell you is that people that are engaged in dogfighting, it's not one and done. They are always involved in either more dogfighting or what we see at the Bureau is also drugs, also gang activity. And so by allowing this to be part of the RICO statute and being an underlying crime with the RICO statute, is we can really go after not just the spectator or the organizer, but we can go after the criminal enterprise that puts this stuff on. And that will help us to be able to address this problem. You're concerned, Senator, about a single spectator. If it is a one and done, I was at a dogfight and I saw it, the statute and the rule of lenity would say it is a misdemeanor and it goes away. But if you're doing that in conjunction with other crimes, gang activity, drugs, then yes, the RICO statute could and should apply. But if you're doing it again and again and again in those situations, just being a spectator again and again and again, the reason that we are in favor of RICO liability is because you're the son of a gun or daughter of a gun that is funding this stuff, and you need to be held accountable. And so for those reasons, we would ask for favorable consideration of adding dogfighting as RICO predicate.
You got a question from Senator Robertson?
Yes, sir.
Director Melton, I've had the opportunity to come up on some of these operations and see how they run in conjunction, but I've also come up on these operations and they weren't fighting dogs, but they were cockfighting.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference between the cockfighting and the dog fighting? And while I appreciate your passion, I think I see the viciousness of dogs, and I think it has something to do with all of us growing up with one. And I'm policed in Columbus, but grew up in Harris County, so I grew up around a whole lot of chickens. So I'm just I'm curious. Gangs do fight chickens just like they fight dogs in parts of the state.
Sir, we're particularly concerned with the dogfighting aspect, but as far as the cockfighting aspect of it, it's not enumerated in this statute. And quite frankly, if y'all'd like to make an amendment to include cockfighting, we'd be in favor of that too, sir.
I've witnessed purchases of chickens for thousands of dollars so they could be used and carried to pits that spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to build these places hidden in the woods so that groups of gangs of all colors and of all languages can go out there and fight these animals. So I was just curious if we need to encompass the other animals that are being exploited along with the dogs.
That would certainly be appropriate, sir. Thousands of dollars are utilized in order to raise, breed certain kinds of chickens for the sole purpose of dying in the ring or killing in the ring.
Thank you, Director.
Yes, sir.
A very good point, Senator. Perhaps you and the bill's author could have a little offline conversation. I've got another question from Senator Kim Jackson.
Thank you, and thank you for bringing some expertise to the room. So one of the questions I asked earlier was about repeat offenders. And so can you tell me instances of where people have actually been charged with the felony of dogfighting, served time, and then gone back and then got caught again and again? Are we really talking about people who've actually been prosecuted the first time who keep coming back for another bite at the fight?
And I believe Ms. Jessica Rock can actually testify to that. Yes, ma'am.
I'll wait for
Yes.
the right testimony.
Yes, ma'am. And I apologize. Mine
okay.
is more racketeering, and hers is, she's the best of the best when it comes to animal cruelty.
Thank you. Other questions? Senator Dugan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So in the packet, we have this OCGA section. This is already the law, right?
Which OCGA section?
For
Yes.
dogfighting.
Yes, sir. Dogfighting is the law. Yes,
So
sir.
all this bill is doing is putting under racketeering.
That's right, sir. Instead of 42 predicate crimes, we'll have a 43rd predicate crime.
So that was what was throwing me off. The questions you're asking are already the law.
Correct. So, may I respond? So my question is, what we already have in law, is that not effective?
Okay.
That's my question, because in law, we already have, it's a felony to dogfight. If you're a spectator and you're caught the second time, it's a felony. So that's my question, is what we currently have, is it not effective? And that's why we're moving to RICO. That's my question. Does that help?
Then I'm excited to hear the
just-
further testimony.
And to Senator Jackson's point, the one done or the one and done again, that's fine. But if you're part of a larger organization, the racketeering statute allows us not only to go after you, but everybody that's connected with this criminal enterprise as well.
Thank you. You good? All right. Other questions to committee members? We've got some more folks who want to come up and talk. You've already talked about the very lovely and talented Jessica Rock with PAC. Why don't you come on up and speak to us with your experience and perhaps answer some questions.
Thank you. Obviously, I am supportive of this bill, and I just want to thank all of you for those who have signed on to this bill already. As you mentioned, my name's Jessica Rock. I am the state animal crimes prosecutor here in Georgia, the first that we've ever had. I appreciate all of you who worked on the budget for that last year as well. I'm also a special assistant United States attorney, so I was sworn into the Southern District of Georgia specifically to handle animal crimes. Also, one of the first ever specialized federal prosecutor to solely handle animal crimes. I've prosecuted a number of dogfighting and cockfighting cases on the federal level, have other ones pending. Also, basically what I do on a regular basis is train law enforcement, not just on investigations of dogfighting and cockfighting cases, but also the link to the very violent other crimes that they're committing, mostly gang activity, drug activity, illegal weapons offenses, and other violent things, even so much as human trafficking that we know occurs at some of these dog fights and chicken fights. To answer Senator Jackson's question about the one about, is this dog fighting going on, I think is how you started. One of the first things that I do when I go train a group of law enforcement officers is I ask them, how many of you in here, and honestly, think that post Michael Vick, this is not really going on in your state? And a number of law enforcement officers will raise their hand. I say the same thing about chicken fighting. The problem is there's just not enough of us that handle these cases and have knowledge of them, that we are spread very, very, very thin around this whole state. But I am bombarded daily with calls from law enforcement and prosecutors to help with these cases. I actually even got a text message as I'm sitting here about a dogfighting yard in a county not far from here. I spend day in and day out, and have for about the past 20 years, working on these cases, dedicating my life to try to rid Georgia of the individuals that are bringing dogs and roosters into Georgia to fight them for gambling purposes. And let's not forget about the fact that this is, at the end of the day, all about money. The other question that was asked is, do we see repeat offenders? What we have uncovered when it comes to dog fighting and chicken fighting is it is definitely about the money, but it also is an addiction for these individuals. They get addicted to being at the top of the game. There is an entire underground world of dog fighters and chicken fighters that I could talk your ears off about for hours and hours. If anybody has any questions about, the underground world of dog fighting and chicken fighting and how much it exists in Georgia, I'm happy to talk to you about that, in greater detail. Why do we want to put this under RICO? Do we already have a dogfighting statute? Yes. OCGA 161237. It's a misdemeanor to be present in a dogfight. Any other type of dogfighting, which is owning, possessing, training, transporting, or selling dogs for the purpose of dogfighting, wagering anything on money on dogfighting, or hosting a dogfight on your premises, are all felonies. The problem is, most of the time, when we are prosecuting these cases, we are not raiding a dogfight. We are up on federal wires on T3s. We are dumping phones and, with search warrants and going through social media on search warrants. And what we're seeing is a number of individuals communicating about drug trafficking involved in gang activity. And I know Jack Winnie's here. I don't know if he's also going to speak, but he's prosecuted cases that I teach about in my PowerPoints. We see this connection every day in our cases. And like I said, we could talk for hours about it, but part of why we want it in the under the RICO statute as a predicate act is because it allows us to go after the conspiracy. It allows us to go after the entire criminal enterprise of everybody that's networking together to transport these dogs, to train them, to breed them, to sell them, because it takes a whole underground world of people to make the world of dogfighting happen.
Thank you, Jessica. My apologies, we were just checking on something, and maybe you know the answer to it. My understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with your expertise, is that the two biggest animals that are used in these type of fights are both dogs as well as roosters.
Correct.
And we're trying to figure out, is there an easy way to amend this bill to have both in there? Because this is just dogs right now, and talking to the bill's author as well as legislative counsel. We're trying to figure out where that would be in the code in order to do that correctly.
So I'm glad that you asked that, because as of now, Georgia is the only state in the entire country, am I right on that, Deborah? The only state in the entire country that does not have a specific law against cockfighting. When we raid a cockfight in the state of Georgia, we've tried to pass this bill here a number of times, and it has not worked. I think because a lot of people have some misconceptions about it, but we have used the federal law. The past three, I have personally, with about 175 other federal and state law enforcement officers, taken down the three largest chicken fighting operations in the state of Georgia over the past 2 years. We seized all their land, we took all their paraphernalia, but the only way we were really able to do all of that was through the federal system. And in Georgia, if we happen to come upon a cockfight where we see the animal cruelty happen, we can charge it under OCGA 1612-4, which is our animal cruelty statute, but we cannot specifically go around and execute search warrants on a number of people we know all over the state of Georgia that are breeding chickens for the purpose of selling them for chicken fighting, or that are actually fighting them themselves. I learned way more than I ever wanted to know about chicken fighting when I proffered with three of the biggest chicken fighting operators in the state of Georgia during the federal cases that I handled. I did not realize that the chicken fighting world has as deep and as a dark and as a extensive underground world as dog fighting. There are people that are known as the good breeders of the big baddest roosters, and those little chicken huts you see all over when you're driving in rural Georgia. You see these roosters that are tethered on single point tethers with these little teepee looking huts. Those are roosters that are being raised for the purpose of fighting. There's no other legitimate reason to do that, and right now we can't go after that. And I've got emails and calls daily from law enforcement officers wanting to do that. We just had a guy execute a search warrant the other day on a trailer that a guy had gotten repoed that he brought into Georgia for rooster fighting. In there was hundreds of knives, gaffs, guess what? Illegal drugs. So House Bill 217, which Scott Hilton dropped in the House, is to amend our dogfighting law to also add cockfighting to OCGA 1612-37. So if there is a way to also add cockfighting to this particular bill to make cockfighting illegal under RICO, I think that is certainly appropriate.
Okay, so I'm going to just interrupt you for one moment to make sure we can do this right and in order, because that is a bill that obviously is in process right now and not passed. So I'm going to look over at Jenna for a moment. Can we add that if it's not technically there yet, or would that be covered under anything in 1612-37?
Okay.
Look to the prosecutors on the RICO prosecutors. If we can add a federal law, we would add the federal cross-reference. But do you find that problematic to add the federal?
It would be helpful. It would be more helpful to go ahead. Robert Smith, General Counsel, PAC. It would be more helpful to have the state corollary rather than constantly relying on a federal law that we would have to have a specific time stamped reference to, because in case the federal law ever changes, we have to have the reference to the law as it existed rather than the law as it currently is.
Okay, so let me ask a question. Today, if we look at line 13 of this bill, it says dogfighting in violation of Code Section 1612-37. If Representative Hilton passes his bill, it could say dogfighting and cockfighting in violation of Code Section 1612-37. Is that not accurate?
We could say any animal covered under 1612-4.
Okay, Senator Robertson, I want you to say what you're talking about.
Or could it say any animal listed under 16-12-4? We
could put animal fighting
and that
under
would
OCG.
cover it? So we
Yes.
could cut back on that hamster wrestling ring that may start up any day, just to be on the safe side?
Yes, it could, if it's just, we are trying to amend the dogfighting statute to say animal fighting, but specifically only as to dogfighting and chicken fighting, not just any random.
But if we amend the state law to say animal then if we put animal in here, then any animal just under that state law, if we list that in here, then we're solid?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Thank you.
I'm going to look over at legislative council for anyone, guys.
So you're trying, you want to get rid of the dog fighting line and put animal fighting?
I'd almost put,
Animal cruelty is the 1612, and we only say animals and everything but a fish.
I would almost want to keep dog fighting in there and then put that in addition to.
Exactly, yeah.
So animal cruelty cases involving fighting.
Dog fighting and any.
And animal fighting, yes.
I wouldn't word
on-
it as animal cruelty because that's a whole separate issue, and it makes it confusing because under the animal fighting statute, we don't have to prove animal cruelty. You can simply have a yard of 100 dogs that you're possessing for the purpose of dog fighting, and that's a felony.
But you're talking about animal fighting under federal law, right?
No, under our state law,
Dog fighting law.
yes.
But that doesn't, but so if we're cross-referencing 161237, that's only for dogs. So I just want to make sure we have it right. If we're going to do a second line for animal fighting, we only have animal cruelty, like we just said, we have to use the Fed reference as the underlying crime to pull it in. So unless we're going to use animal cruelty in relation to fighting, chickens.
Right.
That might be the best way. Animal cruelty cases involving fighting of poultry.
Oh, I understand what you're trying to do. Okay, so if you do it that way, the problem is, the problem with that would be, and just so you know how that would kind of play out, is that we would still only be able to use it if we actually rated a chicken fight. So that wouldn't cover all of the other paraphernalia, the raising of the roosters, the breeding of the roosters, the giving steroids and stuff. It wouldn't cover all of that.
I'm going to, just for timing's sake, ask maybe, Robert, would you go over and spend some time with Jenna and see if you can figure something out while we go through some other questions?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
I got a question from Senator Payne.
On that line that you're trying to change, this bill's trying to change in reference, where's that language at for this? I had it here just a second ago. Not this one, but the bill. Where you're adding the line 13, the dog fighting in violation of code section 161237, could we not just put the code section in that, on that line? Because if that way we're not saying dog fighting, we're just saying
The code section.
the code section, because there is a bill that could make that, because I carried the bill a couple years ago trying to change
Yes, thank
this,
you.
and I ran into the House, and it died in committee over there and got lost somewhere. But just to add cockfighting to 161237, so if that bill changes, this bill doesn't need to say dog fighting, or we'll have to come back and amend it again.
So you're saying just make it violation of code section
Violation of Georgia Code
161237.
Section 161237.
Incorporate the cockfighting.
And that way, if they get something changed over there, we don't have to come back and change this one.
That does make a whole lot of sense, Senator. I've got a
That
couple
will
more
work in
questions.
terms of the wording.
Okay.
Yes.
Senator Goodman, I think you had a question. What number are you? Okay, go ahead.
I was just curious, in your testimony earlier, you were talking about in some of the cases you've tried that you seized the land of the
Yes,
people that
we've
were-
gone up, we forfeited the land, or sought forfeiture on the land of all three of the chicken fighters we took down in the federal system.
So, at what point do you go about? At what level does it get to for you to take somebody's land? I'm curious to know that.
It's typically just a decision based on the AUSA who handles the forfeitures as to what they find appropriate. I don't do forfeitures, so that's not something that I'm personally seeking or filing motions for. There's typically somebody in those offices that handles that, and those decisions were made by that person.
And so who makes that decisions on to take their land?
In the federal system, well, at least in the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District, there's an attorney there who just handles the forfeitures. So that person makes the decisions as to whether or not they seek forfeiture of the land. And obviously, it's going to probably be a pretty involved case for us to do that. We're not going to go around and use the resources to seize land that, we don't believe has been used for quite some time and extensively for that purpose. In these two cases, well, there was three, but in the main two that happened in Emmanuel County, these two individuals had been operating chicken fighting operations every other weekend for about the past 20 years. In addition to that, they had stadium seating. They had, all kinds of hookups for people in their trailers when they brought all these roosters into the state of Georgia with all of their knives and gaffs and other paraphernalia to fight their roosters. So they had a whole operation going on that was pretty extensive.
Senator, if Joe and Larry decide to go out back on their farm and fight two chickens and they're caught in violation of law, there's no asset forfeiture. But if, as described by the prosecutor, this would have been a business. All the structures on this property most likely are funded by illegal activity. The same thing if an individual buys a vehicle with drug money and uses it to continue that operation, the individual, when captured, have offered that vehicle up to possibly be seized. The forfeiture process is done by a professional who understands how to do forfeitures, but all forfeitures are approved by a judge, whether it's a federal judge, Superior Court judge, and some forfeitures are pre-conviction and some forfeitures are post-conviction based on the particular cases. But you have to show that the property seized is directly related to the crime that was being committed. So if somebody has marijuana hidden in their house, if we can't show that they're trafficking marijuana which led to the purchase of that house, or that house is used specifically for the trafficking of marijuana, we don't take their house. So it's very specific that it's ill-gotten gains or it's property used for criminal activity.
Okay, Senator Dugan, did you have a question, or? All right, Senator Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think you're finally the expert that I've been waiting to talk to. I'd like to know, there are two questions. The first one being the crimes that you've named that you see continuing to go along with dogfighting, drug use, prostitution. Are those not already predicate offenses for the RICO in the first place?
Yes, and that's part of why we want to add dogfighting to those other predicate acts that we're continuously seeing, so that we can paint, whenever we go to court and we're trying to explain to a judge or to a jury why we charged this person with whatever we charged them with, our goal is to paint a picture of the whole process to them as to why, if I'm going to court and I'm asking for somebody to spend an extensive amount of time in prison, I probably need to show why I want that person to spend an extensive amount in prison. And adding dogfighting or animal fighting under the RICO Act as a predicate act allows us to then go after the entire criminal enterprise of not just the people who are trafficking the drugs, but the people who are also involved in dogfighting, using those proceeds from these dogfights to, fund their drug trafficking, and using the drug trafficking funds to fund their dogfighting addiction. We see it all the time.
Yeah. And then my final question, I've asked this of every person, so maybe you can answer, is have there been instances, you referenced Michael Vick, right? Have there been instances of people who have been prosecuted and sent to prison for dogfighting who've gotten out after serving their time and then committed the offense again?
100%. And there's one recent case that I obviously don't want to mention details about it, but that we just executed 2 search warrants on a couple weeks ago.
Okay, thank you.
And he's a repeat offender.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate your time. I know we already heard from you a bit. Robert, do you have anything further to add?
Other than to say, once again, what a privilege and an honor it is to work with Jessica, and to thank both, as she said, to thank former Commissioner Black and current Commissioner Harper from the Agriculture Department for getting us this position. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, one more person to speak. Jack Winnie, why don't you come on down? A familiar name to most of us here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And y'all have heard from John Melvin and Jessica Rock already today, who are two of the foremost experts on both RICO and dog fighting. I'm Jack Winnie. I'm Deputy Chief Assistant DA for gang crimes for Herb Cranford, the Coweta Circuit District Attorney. And I just I won't rehash everything they've said, but do appreciate the Lieutenant Governor and appreciate Senator Williams. This will be an incredibly useful tool for law enforcement and prosecutors. One thing I think I could reemphasize is, one thing that this will allow us to do is bring people to justice who are part of this criminal underworld that we may have evidence of from current dogfighting investigations, but can't reach because of the venue provision in just dogfighting that we will be able to reach in RICO and RICO conspiracies. And there is a lot of overlap. The same people who are dogfighting are the same people who are committing violent crimes, drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, and so this will be a great tool for public safety and for prosecutors. So, and there is a lot of overlap with gang activity. Not every gang member is engaging in dogfighting, but there are plenty of dogfighters who are gang members, and some dogfighting that is gang motivated. And so we appreciate y'all and appreciate the Lieutenant Governor and Senator Williams, and thank you. I'll take any questions too if there are any more, but.
I think you did well. Thank you so much. Okay. Here's the posture of the committee. After hearing from both PAC as well as friends in the Lieutenant Governor's office and our own legislative council, I want to see if this will make sense. On line 13, we would replace where it says dogfighting in violation of and just simply state offenses enumerated in Code Section 16-12-37. Thank you. I'm going to talk to Legislative Council to make sure that my night schooling was accurate.
And that's with the understanding that if the cockfighting bill passes, that would automatically be included.
Okay, so I think I heard a proposed amendment from Senator Payne. Was that true?
Just as you quoted the words and had written there, I would make the motion that we accept that as a substitute.
Okay, so we've got a proposed amendment from Senator Payne to replace on line 13, dogfighting in violation of with offenses enumerated in. Is there a second for that amendment? Second. I have a second from Senator Robertson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Passed unanimously. We now have a new committee sub as amended. What is the posture of the committee? Got a motion to pass from Senator Robertson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Senator Payne. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say no.
No.
All right, we've got, raise your hand if you're a no. We've got 3 noes, Senator Harold Jones, Senator Valencia C., and Senator Kim Jackson. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses, so we'll do that for the record. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. I do want you to know we are going to have a committee meeting tomorrow for those who are trying to slip out a little early on Thursday. So don't take this off your calendar. We will get an agenda out to you ASAP, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thank you for your time. This meeting is hereby adjourned.